Hello, everyone. I'm Kerry. I'm Tim's younger daughter, and I'm here in Scotland with Mum, who's Gail McCarthy.
Yeah, hi, folks.
For those of you who haven't met us before, we're in the sun-drenched idyll of Broughty Ferry here, and we'll also be handing over to my sister, Kim, who's in Sydney with her husband, Jim. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you've got your favorite drink with you to toast Dad on his 80th birthday today. And if you've got snacks, sandwiches, cheese footballs, trifle, that'd be great. These are all optional. It's not the celebration we hoped for, as the great man isn't here himself, although he's hopefully watching somewhere. If he was here, I think he'd probably be up in his office smoking his pipe and finishing the cryptic crossword. But I like to think he'd drop in on the party from time to time, because this is where we keep the whiskey, so he'd have to. Before we say anything else, I know that Dad would have wanted me to thank you all for being here. And as we've been going through these photographs, it's really brought home how much love and how much joy he had around him, which is thanks to each of you who contributed these treasured threads to the tapestry of his life. So I know he would want me to say from the bottom of his heart and from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. So most of you probably haven't seen these two photographs. Dad as a baby on the left there. And this is an expression that I think he still adopted as an adult whenever he was feigning interest in something rather badly. He's like, wow, that's magnificent. And then look at the cheeky, wild face he had as a young lad on the right. Trademark dimple, of course, there. And I'm going to hand you over to Kim for the next picture.
So hello, everybody. It's Kim here, Tim's elder daughter, coming from down under in Sydney. Dad would want us to celebrate today and try not to shed any tears, as life is not a rehearsal and we should all seize the day. A couple of his favorite quotes were. So thank you for joining on this happy occasion, my dad's 80th birthday. And is anyone picking a Michael Caine resemblance in the top left corner picture there?
Yeah.
A few points about Dad. Dad was the bedrock of our family. He was clever, funny, very lovable. He loved a whiskey, wine, smoking his pipe, a good Americano coffee. His nose was always in a book or a newspaper. And he had a passion for chess, cryptic crosswords, and driving his Mercedes. He took great pleasure in a debate, as I'm sure you all remember. And he relished a good skop, skit and donna, as he used to call them, which is Afrikaans for an action movie. He loved the outdoors and he played sport throughout his life, including soccer, squash, racquetball, and cycling. And he was a dedicated employee in constant pursuit of self-improvement. He was super competitive, he loved to win, and that made him highly driven in his career. And Dad was hard as a rock on the outside, but you'd catch him tearing up to an episode of Little House on the Prairie, giving you a window into his true self. Dad was happy, content, humble in his later years anyway, but most of all, and frugal actually, but most of all, he had a great sense of humor and he was incredibly lovable. So I'll hand you back to Kerry for this next
We're
slide.
going to see some pictures. Here are some pictures of Tim and his younger brother, Mike, who was 2 years younger. They were both born in Cape Town and retained a fierce love for the beautiful city all their lives. Their mother, Edna Maria Margarita de Nason, had Dutch ancestry, and their father, Henry Finbar McCarthy, was a solicitor who came to Africa from Ireland. But the couple's marriage broke down and they divorced when the boys were very young. And following this, life was really tough for Tim and Mike, who went to a succession of different schools whilst in care and then in different foster homes. And finally, they were reunited with their mother again and were sent to a strict Catholic boarding school. What Dad witnessed there basically made him an atheist for the rest of his life, which won't come as a surprise to some of our relatives and friends who've debated him on the subject over the years. That was a pretty tough thing to do. But luckily, perhaps, he was thrown out of that school for not attending chapel, and he spent the last years of his education quite happily at Wynberg Boys High School. So for a long time, Tim and Mike only really had each other for support. And though he claimed to be jealous of his baby brother Mike when they were young, in reality, they always had a deep affection for each other. Both had the same dry sense of humor and were very quick-witted, with a stoic outlook that they'd got from their difficult upbringing. Both sadly passed away from the same kind of cancer. But even in Dad's final days, when Kim asked him how he was doing, his answer was still relatively perky. Now, Mom is going to talk about the next slide, and prepare yourself for high fashion, okay?
Oh gosh, this was the age of the beehive and the miniskirt, which looks so strange now. I had lots of dark hair then, but Tim, who was 29 when I met him, was already going grey. And what a smooth charmer he was. He was the most romantic boyfriend I'd ever dated. At the time, he was sharing a rented house with John Barry, who worked in the same company. John had custody of his 2 children, and they were all very well looked after by an African maid, Mumsy, who was fantastic. And I think they got used to being waited on, because he once asked me to wash his car, as his previous girlfriends had done. He was surprised when I said, "No, that's your job." When we went out on dates, it was usually a foursome with John and his latest girlfriend, whom I often had to supply. Tim would have me in stitches with his dry sense of humor. And when we were on the dance floor, he imitated the guy with the funniest moves. He was also very much an old-fashioned gentleman and hated men using swear words in front of women. He demanded earlier in our relationship that we were going steady. And then after a few months, I had to go back to Rhodesia as my mother was ill. This was a turning point for us. Certainly we did miss each other, but Tim was frantic, wondering what I was getting up to in my old hunting ground, as it were. He phoned me, very expensive, and also sent telegrams, cheaper, asking when I was coming back. My mother recovered and Tim met me at the airport. On the drive home, he said, "I suppose I'll have to," several times he said that, "I suppose I'll have to look for a piece of ice." It was later explained to me by my friend, that I shared an office with, that ice was what you call a diamond in South Africa. Then these holidays, we went on such amazing holidays with his firm for being top of the sales league wherever he was. We went to all these places we would never have gone on our own, as he hated to fly. Now, I could name them all, but here are some: Florida, the Caribbean, Bali, into China, Hong Kong, etc. And it was great because he enjoyed them once he was there. Then in later life, we went on some wonderful holidays on the continent. He especially loved Italy. In the last 4 or 5 years, our trips were pretty much limited to places like Marks and Spencer's and the coffee shop at Tesco. But he was happy with that and had such a strict routine that our neighbors could set their watches by his activities.
Dad was an amazing father. He led by example. And treasured memories with Dad were enjoying the outdoors with him, climbing Table Mountain and long Scottish coastal walks and bike rides. My dad was quite intimidating to people who didn't know him. And when I was a teenager in Scotland, all my friends were scared of him. The scary South African man, they called him. And when I was 15, my first ever boyfriend made the mistake of draping his arm around me to walk me to Dad, who was standing at the back of the party hall waiting to pick me up. And Dad stood motionless until we got to him, then hit the guy's shoulder with so much might, poor old Billy went flying back and fell to the ground. And the irony of it was that many years later, they ended up being good squash buddies, which is a testament to the forgiving nature of men. And Dad used to embarrass me with when my Scottish friends called my home. He would always insist on answering, as he felt it was his duty to teach them good manners. So the conversation went something like this: "Ring, ring, McCarthy residence. Is Kim in? Oh, good evening. This is Kim's father speaking. Yes, Kim is in at the moment. And how are you today? Oh, I'm good. Well, that's wonderful to hear. I'm very well too. Thank you for asking. And it was a real pleasure to make your acquaintance. And I'd just be standing there with this bright red face, just wanting the ground to swallow me up. Oh, I can feel it now, actually.
I remember that because I remember standing watching that happen. Dad taught us a lot by demonstration, I think. He was hardworking, dutiful, and decent in such an unceremonious way that the extent to which he embodied these traits only really became clear in hindsight. He basically just got on with it. He had these daily routines perfectly honed to help him cope with everyday challenges of life and work, but also to help him enjoy these things. So there were lots of conventional lessons that he passed on to us, but his own techniques for good living were things we observed as very useful. Sorry, technical problem. So instead of focusing on goals, I think he focused instead on systems for the everyday that just brought about success and contentment in themselves, you know, getting up early in the morning, drinking a precisely measured amount of coffee and whiskey at certain times of the day. I'm not exaggerating. Doing 40 minutes exactly on the exercise bike every day without fail, no holidays, meticulously planning his work ahead of time, making sure he went to places he liked hanging out in and seeing people he liked seeing every day. And really, I do think he could have written a tremendous straight talking self-help book for men with none of the flim flam. Get your mind right would be the whole of chapter 1. That was his go-to phrase. And after working so successfully in sales for many decades, he also had business advice that could be applied to many aspects of life apart from sales. It's a numbers game, is one I remember, and never make up your customer's mind for them. And I look back on those sometimes and think, I wish I applied that wisdom to my love life more often. That's another slideshow. Anyway, one of the things he taught us that I particularly liked was how to drop big and obscure words into sentences to make people laugh. But I'll tell you about that a bit later on. I'm going to hand over to Mum now.
Mike's whole family came over from South Africa to live in and around London, and it was wonderful to have them in the same country again. Hailing from Cape Town, where Dad grew up, the UK must have been a big challenge, a big change, but they seemed to take it in their stride. The final smile we got from Tim in hospital was when we spoke about his baby brother, and he called Mike that all his life, even when they were in their 60s. We met up in London and in Scotland and had a whale of a time, and also went on holiday together, twice to Ireland and to Whitby Bay. And it was lovely to be in the easy company of the group in which everyone felt at home.
Okay, so look, obviously the best accent on the Zoom today, but you'll have to deal with that. I call this picture the official blessing. So Kim and I decided to go on a European holiday visiting Scotland, see her family, and then eventually move on to Italy and Paris. But little did she know that in the background I was plotting to make her mine officially. But you know, in the most cliche of ways, you know, New Year's Eve, stroke of midnight, under the Eiffel Tower, as the fireworks lit up the sky, of course. But in order to do that and pop the question, though I did want to get Tim and Gail's blessing and ask for their daughter's hand in marriage, and the picture on the screen is the toast directly after they'd agreed that I would be a satisfactory partner. So that went well. And all this happened though, well, Kim was upstairs, so she's in the shower, unaware totally. So we kept that under wraps until we went to Paris. And if you're wondering why I don't have a bigger smile on my face, well, mainly it's because I was expecting a dowry of sorts, like at least a goat or something, you know, as per Greek tradition would have it. You know, the parents of the wife need to give a farm animal of some sort, but that didn't happen. If we move on to the next slide, there we go. Now this is, you know, Kim said yes, and then the planning began. So the wedding was to be held in Sydney, which gave Kim's family a great excuse for a trip down under. And the picture on the left is the family gathering a couple of nights before the main event, I believe. The expression you see on Tim and Gail's face is utter confusion regarding the catering. It just didn't make sense. Enough food for 60 people, but less than 20 in attendance. You know, right? And there were more people coming? No. Did my mother accidentally make too much? No. Was my father trying to communicate that Kim was in safe hands, showing abundance in a way that Tim and Gail would understand, right? You know, like back in ye old days in Great Britannia, when only the well-off could feast and entertain, but no, actually none of the above. This was just how Italians and Greeks ate normally, and the desserts hadn't even come out yet. So when when they did come out, I heard Tim and Gail in unison say, "Oh gosh." And then we have another picture on the right there. That's the photo on the right is myself and Tim, of course, with my eldest daughter Kayla on my lap. She was only 11, preparing to be a bridesmaid for the first time, so quite exciting for her. It was smiles all around. Everyone was quite excited. What a beautiful day for the wedding. Everything just turned out so well for the traveling folk. This picture's up there particularly as a little reminder of Tim and Kayla had a great relationship, and she really loved their interactions. He would make her laugh in all the time, or only the way Tim could, and just silly fun filled with jokes, weird noises, unique communication, you name it, it was there. They'd have a bit of a thing every morning where they'd walk past each other and bow, and it was quite wonderful to see. What deeply saddens me is that they won't be able to speak again, as he had a lot to give as a grandfather. He was a straight up guy. You knew where you stood with him. I knew that immediately. He was a private man with strong morals and dignity. So very, very easy to be with, very easy to sit with and chat to. And no matter what he was going through, if you ask him how he was, he'd always say, okay, as if like, I'm fine. I'm all good. Others have got worse problems in the world. So I will miss him. And I'm glad that everyone was able to get together here to celebrate. So I'll pass you back over to Kim, and it's cheers for me. I'll go back to the other computer and watch from there.
So I mentioned Dad was frugal, not when it came to our wedding. Mum and Dad threw such a lovely wedding for Jim and I in 2009. But boy, did he not want to take that flight to Australia. Most of you might know that Dad absolutely hated flying. He said to me, if you hold the wedding in Scotland, I'll hire Skibbo Castle, which is where Madonna got married. So it would have cost a fortune, but that's how much he was willing to spend to avoid the flight. So the fact that he did make it to Sydney to meet the in-laws and walk me down the aisle and give the most wonderful speech on my wedding day was very, very special. And this was also on our wedding day with all my girlfriends, and he literally had them eating out of the palm of his hand, as you can see. And he was telling them all sorts of tales and jokes in his usual charming way. And the thing I love about these two photos is in the second one, all my friends are animated, and Dad just retains total composure as he has in the first photo. So I'm going to hand you over to Diana now, Mum's sister, to say a few words.
I do love these two photographs.
Yes,
He's just like taking it in his stride because he's used to this kind of attention constantly wherever he goes.
Can you hear me, Kim?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. All right. Smashing. These are the photographs that I remember so well. And I've got some words from my two sons who are on that photograph to the right, Will and Greg. Will's the older one. And he says, Tim was a force to be reckoned with. I remember growing up and being constantly challenged in a supportive way. I loved the sharpness of his mind, his quick wit, and his singing voice, always ready with a joke and a wry comment. I'll miss you, Tim. And then Greg, I remember the sparkle in his eyes, his wit, and the calming effect he had on the family. And Greg, who's on the far right, far left rather, is the one who was teased rotten by Tim when he was a tiny little boy. And he used to get quite scared of Tim. But Will was never fazed by Tim. He just used to stand up to him and say, funny Tim, when he was teased. So as his sister-in-law, my earliest memories of Tim are of great fun with Gail and toddler Kim in the car at the drive-in, complete with Kentucky Fried Chicken and Cokes. The
Yeah.
movie didn't matter because it was the company that was special.
Mm.
And I apologize for the noise here. This is noisy London, okay? Then there were all those wonderful Christmases in St. Andrews when Tim would tease my little boys and marvel at their noisy energy. In later years, after 300-mile journeys north to Moneyfeith, there was always a magnificently generous tot of whiskey waiting to greet me. And my lasting memory of Tim is that one that we've just seen at Kim and Jim's wedding, pipe in hand, holding court surrounded by Kim's girlfriend. And I'm going to say cheers now to Brother Tim. I miss you, and here's thinking of you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Okay.
Diana.
Thanks,
Yes,
Diana. Thank
yours
you.
was usually a whiskey, Diana. Yeah.
Okay. So Dad was really great with kids, and he made a fantastic grandfather. Both Zoe and Kayla found him incredibly funny. He basically was a big kid himself, and Mum always used to joke that he'd never grown up, and he was her third child. So he was in his element with Zoe, who'd kill herself laughing at all his goofy phrases like, I wonder if some of you remember these, bag your pudding instead of I beg your pardon, or nambana instead of banana. And he'd always pronounce silent letters in words like kno, knie, and knife, and changed numbers in words like five gotten instead of forgotten, and befive instead of before. And grandkids gave him this whole new audience after us kids had grown up. And I have to say, Zoe has inherited his love of fun, which is, it's such a blessing, you know, on a daily basis, basically.
Wonderful.
Kim and Kerry don't live anywhere near us, which is so sad. But the people who've really helped to fill the void are Dolly, Neil, and their son, Jamie, who's been such a joy to watch growing up. Tim loved to teach Jamie chess and would have taught him cryptic crosswords when he was older too, probably along an array of less virtuous habits like choosing a good whiskey and charming the ladies.
So here's a couple of photos of Dad with his buddy Stan. And it's Eldon's birthday today as well, who's Stan's son. So here's a shout out to you, Eldon. Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday, Eldon. Yeah.
I know that you and Dad exchanged greetings every year, sharing the same date of birth. Stan and Dad worked together for many years in South Africa and were also great friends. They likened themselves to Patrick Kelly and Manny Cohen in the British comedy Never Mind the Quality, Feel the Width, who were Irish and Jewish tailors in London. I don't know if any of you know them. Or if you're not familiar with that series, Clinton, Stan's other son, said they were like Sterling and Draper from Mad Men, only Tim and Stan were much better looking, he reckoned. Regardless, many a good laugh was shared with when these two were together. And Stan really welcomed Mum and Dad into the Jewish community in South Africa. And he visited them a few times in Scotland, often with a few people in tow. So many, many great memories there. Now I'm going to hand over to Ronnie Davidson, another great mate of Dad's, to share some stories.
Hi, Kim, can you hear me?
I can, Ronnie, yes. Hi, Ronnie.
Okay.
Yes, hi, Ronnie.
Hi, good afternoon to all of you good people who tuned in. And I think special thank you to you, Kim, for putting this all together. And it's going very well, so well done. Kim has just asked me to share some stories of earlier days. By the way, looking at the picture, we never built that bridge. But that's Kim, my friend on the left. And I calculated that we'd been friends for, at the time of his passing, 56 years. So it was a long friendship. Let me just relate to you a little bit, which I think helped me understand the man in the different facets of his life. It was 1965 in South Africa. And just to put that into perspective, petrol in those days was R1 a litre. And 570 milliliters of a good beer would only set you back 16 South African cents, which is not even, it's not even on the radar in pounds. No cell phones, no word processing, no internet, etc. Okay, so there we were. And I also remember Neil Armstrong was just a pilot. Plastic bags were free, but you had to pay for prophylactics. It's true, the world has changed. It was early January in Cape Town, which obviously meant that it was warm weather. And I was a very, very young junior clerk. I just joined the breweries in Cape Town. And I was being introduced to members of the brewery's staff as part of my induction. And it is a very prestigious organization. The breweries was like nirvana. It was, imagine working in a brewery and you're right in between Newlands rugby field and Newlands cricket field. I mean, what more could a man want? Anyway, it was just after lunch and my mentor knocked on the door of the marketing office at Olsen's Breweries and we entered into this room was just a fragrant pall of pipe smoke. If I recall, Tim's mixture in those days was 3 nuns mixed with boxer. Both incumbents of the marketing office smoked pipes. The other guy was his boss, Alan Christopher. Yeah, so they both smoked pipes. And of course, everybody smoked in those days because in 1965, a packet of 20 cost you 19 South African cents, which is just coming onto the dollar radar. So through this haze in the far corner of the office, I remember quite clearly, I noted a youngish guy of very stern countenance working on a hand facet calculating machine. You might want to Google that. This is my first encounter with Mr. T.J. McCarthy, esteemed marketing clerk for Olsen's Cape Breweries, which was part of SAB. But more importantly, he was the owner of the green 1948 Chev in the parking bay outside. Wow. That Chevy had very many stories to relate as our careers developed. We discovered we had much in common. Firstly, that we both attended Wynberg Boys High School. I think Tim left just as I entered, because I think he was about 5 years older than me. Yeah. I won't say 5 years ahead of me because that brings a whole lot of other things into debate, but he was 5 years old. We both lived in Plumstead. We were both very proud Cancerians, and we became friends and remained so. And I just worked out, I think he left us about 192 days ago. And that's where I first met Tim. We played soccer for the breweries on Sunday afternoons and were known to consume a few ales after the game. Tim, yeah, I'm going to skip that part out. I'm going to show you, Tim he was doing the marketing forecast for production, and there was a disgusting beer that the breweries brought onto the market called Export Ale. And I was trying to think what it could be related to, and I discovered nothing. It was just so bad. And sadly, Tim over forecast production. So for 3 months of my life and my friends' lives, we had to drink Export Ale in the canteen when the beer was free, after our game of soccer when the beer was free, and our 2 cases of Take Home when the beer was free. So Tim was the man. We called him the Export Ale man. He took it well. He just used to suddenly sort of slink behind his pipe, you know. Anyway. All right. And I just recall one Sunday evening, just to give an idea of the Chevy, one little story. We had finished playing soccer and we, for some reason or other, arrived at the Plumstead taxi rank. And I knew the taxi driver well, Mr. Darling. I used his services frequently, but he wasn't there. In fact, there were no taxis there, and the phone rang. So I thought I better answer that. So I answered the phone and got the address and into the Chevy we got, and we went off to fetch these good people who were phoning for a taxi. Anyway, this is for the Chevy. We arrived at this place and I discovered that there were 2 school friends of mine way back from my primary school. They were very under the weather. I mean, seriously under the weather. Anyway, being of good nature, we bailed the 2 families, their child and the pram onto the back seat of the Chevy, and we took them home to Kenilworth. I mean, you had to be there to experience it. But anyway, there we go. There are many other stories of the Chevy, including the nursing college in Cape Town, but I think those are best left in the cubbyhole.
Oh, yeah.
We remember
I'll always have I always have the impression of this 26-year-old smoking his pipe and driving his 48 Chevy with reverent respect. He really just serenely used to glide along the roads. I didn't even know if this thing had an engine. Typically, nothing flashy, nothing showy, just Mac placidly rolling along in the Chev with blue smoke trailing from his window. Going back to the soccer, I played goalkeeper for the Breweries, and Tim was a centre half. And I always felt safe when Tim was there, as he was like a rock in defense. Nothing showy, just absolutely reliable, very effective to help me keep the marauding forwards at bay. My mate was just very, very dependable. Okay, moving on, Tim left to join Muller and Phipps as a rep, and through Tim, I was offered promotion to his position. And can you imagine, way back then, I was 21 years old, never really got a matric exemption, so I got through standard 10 and out of high school, no tertiary education, inherited the hand facet calculator, and we did the production forecast for SA Breweries. Can you imagine that today with all the, there we go. Yeah, I'm serious. I remember I did the first forecast for Carling Black Label, and I calculated on a hand calculator that day that I'd calculated 1,100 figures of this thing, and we got it quite right, uncomplicated. It was later on my Tim mate who introduced me to Muller and Phipps as a young rep. So, I was very thankful for him. He took me under his wing. He showed me what to do in the country trips. At that stage, the 48 Chev had been replaced by a beige Peugeot 404 Saloon. And we were driving around in this thing in the country area of the Cape because the AA had recommended it as being the most reliable, economical vehicle for this kind of work. Once again, nothing flashy, but reliable and practical. I just want to share, Tim mentioned earlier, he had a very dry sense of humor. In fact, our senses of humor were quite similar. And we had a little patter when we would be in a group and, people, you meet them for the first time, they don't know who you are, you don't really know who they are. And our patter would go something like this. I would start off, Tim, how's your grand coming along? And Tim would say, oh, Ron, fine, thanks. Her arm is in plaster, but she'll recover. Just to put it in the picture, he had no grandmother. Anyway, the guest who was hearing this would say, hey, gee, what happened? Tim, well, it was raining. Can you imagine? He's got his pipe. It was raining and she was going home from Hout Bay Harbor after a long day on a trawler. She took the wrong line on a bend and lost control of a Harley Davidson. Then I would reply, and Tim, the Harley, how's that? Tim said, no, it'll be fine. Just had some panel beating and so on and so forth, but it'll be okay. And you can see these people getting more and more intrigued. So the guests, alarm and disbelief. So then I would say, Tim, tell me, did she have a good catch? Oh, Tim says, oh, not bad at all. Snooker been running well the last few weeks, at which point we would change the subject and drift away, leaving a rather perplexed group in our wake.
Yeah.
That is my buddy, Tim. All right, I'm going to wrap up. Tim was promoted to head office in Joburg, so we lost contact for about 10 years. And I think it was during that period, Gail, that you came across him. And unfortunately, I wasn't there to guide you, and you landed up with him.
It would have been a different story then.
We caught up again when I was transferred to Joburg, and I'm pleased to say that our families became firm friends. Kim was just a bit older than my daughter, and Kerry's similarly older than my son. And we spent many hours together buying meat, drinking red wine, watching 16mm home movies, and discussing some deep stuff around religion and the Masonic movement, which somebody alluded to earlier. Of course, we solved a lot of the world's problems during that time. It was then that Tim took his family to Scotland, and he never visited South Africa again, but we did. We visited Dundee in 2012, and really it was good to connect once again. And I thank you, Gail and Tim, for just hosting us so graciously. It really was a highlight, and we enjoyed your company so much. So, my friend, happy birthday. Well done on a life very well lived. I've chosen one word to describe you, my friend, and that is very simply good. Good is strong, all-encompassing, and understated. It conveys the message without frills or exaggeration, and I think adequately encompasses the man I knew in all his facets: provider, husband, father, grandfather, and friend. A very good friend. So let's raise our glass to my friend Tim McCarthy. And I'm now going to pass the baton to his very good wife and friend, Gail. Thank you for your patience and thank you for the opportunity. Good luck.
And thank you, Ronnie, because those stories I'd never heard. And I would have been asking you to forewarn me of quite a few things before I got married to him, you know, because I've discovered a lot afterwards. And if you'd been there to guide me through it, it would have been a great help.
Gail, your love for him would have overcome all of that stuff as it did. But anyway,
you're so kind, Ronnie. Thank you so much.
this is a pleasure.
Lovely words, Ronnie. Thank you.
Yes. And love to Denise.
Thank you.
Right.
Over to Gail.
Yes. These are a few of our great friends. There's Rosemary and Peter Kirschman, top left, and Denise and David on the top right. Tim got to know both couples very well, and when the three of us girls went on holiday for my 70th birthday rather, Tim was actually relieved he didn't have to come. John, Barry and Wendy are there too, at the top of in the middle. John and Wendy were really good friends. John was our best man at our wedding, actually. I don't think he'd met Wendy at that stage. And John wrote a book later in which he recounted Tim punching a man who was making a nuisance of himself in a pub, knocking him to the floor without even putting down his whiskey. So how true that is, I don't know, but it sounds about right. Second down, in the middle there, is Catherine Kirschman, daughter of Rose and Peter, and our goddaughter. It's a pity that she got an atheist and an agnostic for godparents. There's Guy French and his then wife, Karen, at the bottom left. And Guy actually can't forget us, even if he tries to, because Tim accidentally hit him with a squash racket, leaving a scar on his eyebrow. So sorry about that, Guy. Other dear friends of ours, Rick and Lorraine, are next to Catherine Kirschman there. Sheila Poltera is another dear friend in the bottom there. And one on the right is David Spence with his moustache then. We don't know the beautiful woman the beautiful woman in the middle is, but no doubt some model.
Did he leave the name in the will? Who was she?
No, he didn't. No, there were a lot of beautiful models that they got pictures with these people, these men. You know what they're like.
Do you remember that photo, David? Do you remember that photo?
Yes, I do. Tim and I tried to start a cosmetic business under the brand of Faber-Castell, the pencil business.
Oh, is that when it was taken?
Yeah.
Good excuse.
Yeah. I used to come across these pictures and wonder, who the hell is that in the middle, you know? And no doubt you were up to your shenanigans then, you know.
No, it was all about the makeup on that. It was a makeup model going off our great cosmetics.
Yes. Well, it's nice to know now what, I mean, I used to get all sorts of stories about who she was if I asked, as you can imagine. And here are a few of our other friends. There's Janet and Larry in the middle. Now, this is the wonderful couple we went to all around the continent. We went to Italy and France many times as a foursome. Robert McAlpine is an old friend of Tim's. He was at the same school at some stage. And they talked later again on Facebook and WhatsApp constantly. We don't actually have a picture of our neighbors on the right-hand side. They're called Ruth and Mike, who've been so incredibly helpful over the past few months in particular. We will have so much gratitude to them. And then top right, our lovely neighbors on the other side, Jackie and Alan, who've gone above and beyond so many times for us, and particularly recently. We really can't thank them enough. I really can't thank them enough. They've been wonderful. At the bottom left is their beautiful daughter, Lindsay, whom we watched growing up, getting married and having such a cute daughter of her own now. She babysat Zoe on several occasions when Kim was over. And then on the bottom right is Tim with his work colleagues, who he always enjoyed hanging out with. He'd love a healthy debate and would regularly probe people on sensitive topics to stimulate a contentious discussion. But he also liked to help people. And in fact, many strangers were made Tim's acquaintance online because he used to propagate bits of advice on Yahoo Answers under the pseudonym of Piet Pompies, which the South Africans will laugh at.
Hello, yeah. I also want to give a special shout out to Stan Baynard, who's here, and maybe Stan, we'll hear from you at the end of this after we've had a toast. I don't know, no pressure, Stan, but I know you're one of Dad's very special best friends, and wonderful to see you over the years, and thank you for everything you've done for our family. When Dad finally retired from his main job, he had this special quarterly soiree with these blokes who he called his chommies. And this was very important that he got a chance to go see them every once in a while. Chommies is Afrikaans for chums. And I think these pictures speak for themselves. They all loved sharing a wee dram and some laughs together.
Yeah, the two who are always in the picture are Alistair Morrison and Glyn Jones. The rest were still working and had to drop out often. Tim, Mike and Ilion and I went to Ireland in 1988 to trace Tim's relatives. Mike and Tim had many cousins over there, and the cousins had heard of Mike and Tim because their births were registered in the family Bible in Ireland. So when we went in search of these mythical cousins, the first one we found was Justin. That's Justin in the middle of the picture there, and the rest of us round the table. On the far right is Tim with Justin's son, who had taken over the running of the family butcher shop. That's Tim in top middle, with I think 2 other cousins that I didn't meet. Then bottom left is the wonderful Kathy Hurley, who's one of Tim's cousins, and on the bottom right is Tim with her daughter, Justina. In the bottom middle are the 2 of them together at a family wedding that Tim went to on his own whilst over in Ireland. Whilst over in Ireland, Tim and Mike went ahead and kissed the Blarney Stone, which is said to grant a person the gift of the gab. However, later we were told that if you are a McCarthy, you actually don't need to kiss the stone, as the gab comes naturally. But we could have told them that, couldn't we, Ilion? Anyway, I'm handing you over now to Kim.
So Dad was always up for a good laugh. He'd often introduce himself to strangers as an amateur gynecologist. And once a guy actually took him seriously, and Dad absolutely loved that. And in South Africa, he'd answer the home phone with Brakpan Polisiestasie, goeiemorgen, which is Brakpan Police Station, good morning in Afrikaans. And he always had us kids in stitches. And when I was young, he was always telling adult jokes to friends and then putting his hands over my ears at the punchline. And he promised to tell me the endings when I turned 16, but he never did. So I still live with all these half-finished jokes in my head to this day.
Knowing you, Kim, you were way ahead of that anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
I think so. Growing up, I always appreciated that even though Dad was the smart-looking adult in a suit, he was basically just a big kid. And this would come out big time if there were children around. He'd completely ignore them and be very stern. And then there'd always be this moment when he'd break character as an adult and say something to them in a very silly voice, parodying all their own mannerisms back to them. And there'd be this moment of total silence as they tried to work out what was going on, and then utter delight and hilarity. And then he'd switch back to being a serious adult again and pretend to ignore the child before repeating the silliness while they were just falling about laughing. And I saw him doing that so many times over the years, and it was just so heartwarming. From these photographs, the previous slide and this one, I think you can see the same thing happened with his colleagues at work. People would see this silly side of a very serious sales manager dude. And in fact, I need to forewarn you about the next holiday snap that Dad took. He's not in the picture himself, but look away now if nudity offends.
Oh, sorry, I did it too early.
So I am in this picture to the left, but you wouldn't know it, would you? I do remember him just saying, "Quick, stand there." And I feel very lucky to have made it into the frame at all, to be honest. But I think it was worth it because we always have a laugh when we see this one, not least because the lady does look very much wise to his capers and like she's about to hit him with a bat. And whenever we see this one in the album, Mum always ignores the woman completely and says, "It's such a shame because it's actually a lovely picture of you, sweetheart." So he was a master of the English language and a true sesquipedalian, as he said, user of long and obscure words. A devout member of the Freemasons in his 30s and 40s, he had the ability to memorize long passages and recite them by rote, and had a remarkable turn of phrase. One of the favorite things he'd say to Mum was, "Calm down to a panic," which, as you can imagine, was very helpful in a crisis. I'd also steal some of his long words and use them as currency in the playground. So in return for not being bullied, I would tell some of the tough, rough kids at school long words, which they'd collect, so that when they got told off in class, instead of saying, "What are you talking about? I didn't do it," they could say something like, "I must apologize for my egregious proclivities." And this would really discombobulate an entire generation of teachers who never discovered the strange reason behind this dramatic expansion in people's lexicons all of a sudden. So Dad's vocabulary extended far out into the community of Fife. And I like to think of his words traveling around the world now that all these kids are growing up.
Oh, so funny, Kez. So it was Mum and Dad's 50th wedding anniversary 10 days ago. And Mum was, a real perfect match for Dad. He met his equal. And I asked Mum on their anniversary what they had in common. And she said, "Well, we had matching grey hair and matching silver cars." so I think they were a strong case of opposites attracting. And if you have a look at that pic of Mum signing the marriage certificate, she's biting her bottom lip. And I wonder what she's thinking there. "Oh, I'll take a chance on this guy, maybe." So some of you may not know that Mum and Dad were married twice, to each other, that is. They got divorced when I was 3, and Mum and I went to live in Scotland, but their love only grew stronger. And they kept in touch by talking on a cassette tape that they posted back and forth between countries, because international calls were expensive in the 70s. And after 18 months, Dad persuaded Mum to come back, and he just sent the plane tickets in the post. And they got remarried in a registration office, and the Afrikaans registrar said, "I don't understand this. McCarthy and McCarthy, has there been a mistake?" And they explained they'd been married once before, and his reply was, "Oh, I hope you two aren't going to make a habit of this, huh?" So everybody's just killed themselves laughing. Luckily, they didn't. Their bond only grew stronger. So look, a big congratulations to Mum and Dad on 50 great years together.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to Mum and Dad. So here we are, Dad completely outnumbered by 3 women, which I think he accepted very graciously with a combination of optimistic neutrality and resignation. And whenever one of us would flounce out of the room in floods of tears, he would always turn to the people who remained and say, "Weird chick, hey?" Which I'm sure you remember, Kim.
Oh, I remember, yes. I remember. Okay, we're almost finished the slideshow, everyone. Here's a big Tim McCarthy explosion for you. Isn't this a great portrait by Kerry? There's a pic of Dad also with a walking stick just to the right of that. He had both his knees replaced in his 60s, and he's showing off a big scar in that one. Some people thought he looked a bit like JFK or Michael Caine, but I made him a very happy man when I was 9. and we were in a video shop, and I pointed to a poster of James Dean and said, "Who's that, Dad? He looks like you." The wide smile that came over his face. He made sure everyone in the shop heard. "Hey guys, did you hear that? Did you hear what my daughter said about me?"
Oh, wonderful. I can just imagine. So as we come to the end of this slideshow, Mum, Kim and I would like you to raise a toast. So firstly, grab a glass if you have one. Hopefully you've got your favorite drink with you. It would be great that we could all cheer him at once. So here we go. To the absolute legend, Tim McCarthy, forever missed and forever in our hearts. Happy 80th birthday, Tim.
Happy birthday.
Timothy.
Happy birthday.
Happy
Cheers.
birthday.
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Nog a pip.
Hooray. Thank you.
Hooray.
Thank you, Stan. I
And
recognize it.
the floor is open for anyone who'd like to talk.
Can somebody just send us some alcohol, because our bottle stores have been closed for 3 weeks now.
Oh, yes, yes. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
Yes. We would have arranged it if we'd known.
And I'm at work, and it would be a bit concerning, I think, if I started drinking at work during the day. So
Oh, Catherine, yes. Hi, have you been watching all the
Makes the
time?
day go quicker.
Yes.
of course I have. I wouldn't have missed it.
A lot of people were working and we thought you'd be one of them, so we didn't expect you to be there. And Kim,
No, I wouldn't have missed it. I'd wanted to be there with you in Scotland, so I would have come up and we'd been able to travel.
Yes, I know that.
1962 looks like Mike. It looks just like my dad.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yes, it does. I thought
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Look, thank you everybody for joining us today. It would have meant a lot to Dad.
Yes.
And for those of you in the UK, we're hoping to have a gathering in person. We didn't actually have a funeral because Dad donated his body to science. So we don't know whether to call it a wake or a gathering, but it all depends on how things move out of lockdown.
Yeah.
But we'll keep you posted.
Well,
about
we're
that.
pretty much out of lockdown now. I think it won't be long.
Yeah, I hope so.
Let's hope
And
so, yeah.
but thank you everybody again. It was really lovely to see you all, and you know, we need to catch up with some of you guys more often on Zoom. Now I know how to use it properly, you know, in a gallery format.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. Kim, if you don't mind, just a little word.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's unexpected. I think my sister will laugh through this third time in my life. But you know, I always loved him, you know. Him and my dad, they were really two peas in a pod. Sorry. But I always felt a really strong bond to Tim, just because of, you know, I guess being the boys in the McCarthy clan of this kind of side of the family. And it was always so great to see them together. You know, on the few times we did, I know I came over in '86, I think it was, and just to see them hanging out, and they were both, and I know this is about Tim, but they were just both so intelligent. They were so intelligent, these guys. And you know, they had a rough start, but they turned out so well, and they brought up beautiful families on both sides. They were so committed to their families. They absolutely adored them. You know, and Tim, the times that I spent with him, you know, Tim helped me out on a couple of occasions, and Gail, of course, you were part of that too. Even in times where he probably shouldn't have helped me out, he really did. He was generous, he was kind, and you're right. He had a, you know, I know him and my dad were constantly exchanging tips and tricks on solving cryptic clue puzzles and all of these types of things.
Remember these things, yes.
Yeah, and I really regret, I know we said to you so many times, we're going to come up and see you, and there was always something that delayed it, and we never did. And I really regret that today, that I didn't get the chance to see you guys, to also get to see Tim one more time by coming up to Scotland and visiting you guys. And I just want to, you know, just raise my glass again and just say, you know,
Yes.
Tim, to a wonderful
Yes.
man, to an intelligent man, to, you know, a real, what's the word I'm looking for? you know, just a wonderful guy. And I just, you know, cheers to Tim, and God bless him. I know he was an atheist, but God bless him anyway, because I'm not. And this is a wonderful commemoration and celebration of his birthday. Thanks to you guys for putting this together.
Well, thank you, Patrick.
Oh, Patch, those such lovely words. And you know, I've been spending all week building myself up to not, you know, I had to write a script and everything because I knew that I just burst into tears otherwise. So you know, it's not easy. And those are beautiful words.
You look like Dad and Mike, Patrick.
You know what? One thing I've noticed more recently, you know, we've the three of us have got these droopy eyelids, and I look at him, like, I look just like that now. I can't believe
handsomeness.
We do look like each other very much.
I've got the droopy eyelids as well, Pat. Don't worry, it's not just the boys in the family.
No, you haven't. The two girls got the dimple in the chin, both of them. And it's just as well, Tim said, because that was his trademark, and he would have asked questions about produce something without the dimple. So
Can I just speak for 1 second? I just I lived next door to Tim and Gail for many years, and we're not even connected as a family, but we always called Tim and Gail my adopted parents, and they were like a grandfather to our son Jamie. And Jamie said today before he left, he said, "Mum, do you know, I'm really sad because Tim would have been 80 today, but I'm going to remember him." And we're down in Yorkshire just now, actually, and we were out the other day and we came across this giant outdoor chessboard. So we took some pictures and sent them to Gail. But Gail and Tim was honestly, Gail and Tim were absolutely fantastic to all of our family, and we'll never forget him. And he did feel like an adopted father to me and an adopted grandfather to our son. And Neil loved him to bits as well, and he made us laugh, and he was just fantastic. We had hard times and he got us through those hard times. So I just want to raise my glass and remember him, and I miss him very much. So
Dolly, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dolly.
Happy birthday to Tim, and all the best.
Thanks, Dolly.
Okay. Cheers. Thank you, Dolly.
Cheers, Dolly.
Sorry.
You've made us all cry.
Well, thank you, Dolly, for being so kind. You really helped us through for the past. You know,
you've been so wonderful.
So helpful. Yeah.
You filled that void for Mum and Dad, actually, but you know, not having any family in Scotland, and you know, Dolly, you and I are the similar ages, almost I think it's only months apart, isn't it? So Mum said that you know, you often reminded her of me. We both, you know, got a lot of energy, and so you know, I'm so thankful that Mum and Dad had you and Neil and such lovely neighbours, and Jamie, you know.
We're so thankful for them, honestly. They've done amazing things for us. So we never had family out, and even because our family were away, so it was great to have you and Tim next door, Gail, and you'll always be with us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for so many people I see on here at the moment. Just everyone's been so amazing, and I hope we've waxed lyrical enough about Stan, because Stan, I can feel Dad speaking to me, saying thank you for being such a good friend over the years. He was always telling us what you were up to. He was always, you know, giving us the latest about Clinton Eldon and your wife, and it was such a long friendship as well. So thank you, Stan.
Yes.
It's no different from this side.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
We're gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him tremendously.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Yep.
Gail, can I just talk about that second wedding? It was an occasion that Bernice and I don't think we'll ever forget.
It was so funny, wasn't it?
we met you at the registrar's office at the magistrate court.
Yes.
And we, Tim and I came from work and you were there. I think you came with Bernice. And we went upstairs and we went through this thing, and the actual story went like this. Does you, Hillian McCarthy, take you, Timothy Justin McCarthy? And then he stopped. And he looked around and he went back in the papers. And then he went forward again. And then he turned around and he said, what is this? By this time, Bernice and I couldn't talk. We were lying on the floor. You managed to stay upright. How? I don't know. But you what it was. And then he came out with that comment. Hey, just don't make a habit of this, eh? I won't forget it. He could be standing here right now.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a million stories. There are so many stories.
I know.
Of what he got up to. And
yes. I know, Stan, and thank you so
I just got to tell you one more, just one very quick one. We used to give blood together. So we went off to the blood bank, and we were lying on the bed after they'd finished doing the blood. And Tim said to me, look at that nurse. And I looked and he said, isn't she gorgeous? And I said, actually, she is. She's a very attractive lady. So he says, $10 says she'll be in my arms within a minute of getting up off this bed. So I said, you got it. So we get off the bed. As he got off the bed, he started to stagger and say, I'm dizzy, I'm dizzy. The pretty lady looked at him with shock, and she stood still and did nothing. Behind her was this big matron who was twice the size of Tim and I put together, who skipped around her, grabbed him, threw him on the bed, turned the bed so that he would lie upside down with his head almost on the floor. Needless to say, I collected my $10, and he didn't like losing. You must know that.
Oh, that's brilliant. I haven't heard that one.
But I could tell you about 100 of those stories.
Yes, I'm sure you could, Stan. I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Thanks a lot for telling us.
Thank you so much for putting this all together. What a wonderful, wonderful experience. It's a pity we didn't do something like this when he was alive.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
Yes.
Well, he didn't like a fuss, did he?
No.
That picture of him at his 40th birthday, you know, we had a couple of friends round. I remember it quite well. It wasn't a big thing. It was only maybe about 3 couples, but he was so embarrassed by it. He said, oh, you know, afterwards he said, oh, you know, there's too much attention on me. You know, I don't like the limelight, you know.
Yes.
So he didn't like a fuss. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that was a surprise party for him. Yeah.
And Gail, when you went overseas, the flying bit, did he do to you what he used to do to me? And that was down half a bottle of vodka.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I said, how can you drink vodka? He said, it's the only thing that doesn't smell. Otherwise, we can't do any work on that side. It's so under control. So under control.
Yes. Oh, he always got a bit plastered before he got on the plane.
He had a couple of vodkas so that nobody would smell it. Because otherwise he never drank vodka. That I can tell you.
Oh no, yeah. Did he drink wine back in the day with you, Stan, or was it always whiskey?
Whiskey mainly, but wine too. Yeah, no, they rhyme. there's a bit of alliteration there, and he liked that.
Yes.
The wine.
Yeah, he drank whiskey and wine till the end. He liked both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the wine was red and white.
Yeah. Not champagne though.
Mine-
I don't think he ever drank
No, he couldn't
champagne.
stand champagne. No.
Not the sweet stuff. Yeah.
And he, you know, his pipe was always his favorite, but cigars, cigarettes, you know,
Oh,
whatever.
yes.
He liked all of
Yes.
those too.
Yeah, when we went to France, he would smoke gouloirs, and he would pick the strongest tobacco he could find anywhere.
So thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Yes,
Yes.
you.
It would have meant a lot to Dad, and it was great to see everyone as well.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So thanks again.
Thanks a lot for putting it together for us.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
And
Thanks.
go well and stay safe.
Yes.
You too. You too.
Thanks.
We're
Lovely
all
to see
dear
you.
friends.
Lovely to
Yes.
see you all. All the best. To Dad.
Okay.
Good.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Good, Tim.
Bye.
Tim.
Bye.
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 go.
Yeah,
Thank
bye.
you. Thanks, Kim. That was amazing.
Bye
And
everyone.
Katie. Bye.
Bye bye.